Welcome to the Explainer. So, today we're tackling something that honestly sounds like the ultimate dry, bureaucratic acronym on paper, CBAM. But we're going to unpack why it's actually the blueprint for a massive industrial shift. We're taking this incredibly dense policy and turning it into a clear roadmap for you. Why? Because understanding this mechanism means understanding exactly where the entire global economy is heading next.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Can a single policy actually reshape global industry? Usually the answer to that is no. Policy is notoriously slow, right? It's incremental. But here, the answer is a resounding yes. We're looking at a shift that doesn't just, tweak the margins or change a few tax codes. It literally rewires the global supply chain. If you really want to grasp how the world works today, you absolutely need to understand the incredibly high stakes behind this one question.
To understand how, here's our roadmap. First up, the carbon leakage problem. Then, defining the CBAM solution, followed by how the mechanism works. After that, we'll cover the global trade ripple effects, and finally, the green investment wave. Let's get to it.
Section 1. The carbon leakage problem, the invisible flaw.
Now, to fully appreciate the cure we're going to talk about, we first have to diagnose the disease. Look at current international climate policies. There's this glaring global loophole that's honestly frustrated economists for years. On one hand, you've got countries adopting these incredibly strict domestic climate rules, making a genuine, real effort to cut emissions with heavy regulations. But then, on the exact opposite side, you have completely unregulated offshore pollution. So what happens? Well, it turns into this highly frustrating global shell game. Instead of actually reducing their pollution, heavy manufacturing companies just pack up their factories. They move production to countries with lax regulations purely to avoid the costs. They escape the rules, keep right on polluting, and then just ship their products right back to the regulated countries. Economists call this carbon leakage.
So here's the absolute crucial point. Moving manufacturing doesn't lower emissions. It literally just moves them around the map. If a heavily regulated market produces less carbon at home, but then turns around and buys all its steel, aluminum, and cement from a country churning out cheap, dirty emissions with zero oversight, well, the planet's atmosphere doesn't care about borders. Actually, scratch that. The total global carbon output goes up because of all that added shipping. Meanwhile, local domestic industries just go bankrupt trying to play by the rules. It completely proves why regional regulations, when they act alone in a vacuum, are just doomed to fail on a global scale.
Moving to Section 2, defining the CBAM solution, the elegant fix.
If carbon leakage is the disease, we definitely need a powerful hero to stop this shell game in its tracks. And this fix was designed specifically for that exact flaw. The hero is CBAM. Yeah, I know, the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism. It sounds heavy, it's full of jargon, it's highly technical, but let's completely demystify it right now. Think of CBAM simply as a green toll booth at the border. Only here, the currency isn't just cash, it's carbon efficiency. If you want to sell your products into a massive premium consumer market like the European Union, you got to pass through this toll booth. If your manufacturing process is clean and green, your toll is low, maybe even practically zero. But if your process is heavily polluting, that toll is going to be incredibly high. It's such an elegant fix, really, because it completely wipes out that financial advantage of moving production to a dirty, unregulated environment.
On to Section 3, how the mechanism works. Red tape simplified.
Look, we're totally bypassing the dense 500-page policy documents today. Let's just look at the logical procedure running inside that toll booth. It really all breaks down into 3 simple steps. Step 1. Track emissions. Importers now have to scientifically calculate and track the exact carbon footprint of the goods they're bringing in. We're talking heavy hitters here: steel, cement, fertilizers, electricity. Step 2. Declare at border. When those goods actually hit the port, the importer officially declares that carbon footprint. And then, Step 3. Purchase certificates. If those imported goods are dirty, the importer must buy CBAM certificates to cover the exact cost of those emissions. And here's the absolute genius part. Those certificates, they're priced exactly at what a domestic producer would have paid for emitting that same amount of carbon. Just like that, clean domestic production and dirty offshore production are forced right onto a completely level playing field. Boom! The shell game is officially over.
Section 4. Global trade ripple effects, a forced adaptation. Now, this is where a localized regional policy suddenly drops a massive boulder into the pond, forcing the whole world to react to the ripples. You've got a regional policy, spearheaded right now by the EU, but it creates this undeniable global market signal.
See, the EU is such a titanic consumer market that entire international supply chains simply must adapt to keep their access. If you're an offshore producer anywhere else in the world and you want to keep selling your valuable steel or aluminum to European buyers, you have absolutely no choice. You can't just rely on cheap labor and dirty coal anymore. You have to actively innovate to compete, or else you just get completely priced out at the border by that toll booth. It literally forces green innovation on a global scale.
Section 5. The Green Investment Wave. The Climax.
So we've talked about the problem, and we've mapped out the mechanics, but this brings us to the core opportunity. This is how the mechanism transforms from a simple border penalty into a historic global market signal. Now, what's really interesting here is the sheer unprecedented financial scale we're looking at. We're talking about historic waves of capital, literally trillions of dollars in projected market signaling over the coming decades. Because CBAM makes dirty production expensive everywhere, it suddenly makes green technology highly profitable everywhere. It completely de-risks green investments. Think about it. If an institutional investor knows dirty steel is going to get taxed heavily at the border, funding a brand new, clean, hydrogen-powered steel plant isn't just some nice environmental gesture anymore. It becomes a rock-solid, incredibly lucrative financial bet.
Notice exactly where this projected capital is heading. These historic waves of investment are pouring directly into green steel, clean energy infrastructure, and sustainable manufacturing. And this proves such a vital point. A smart policy doesn't just have to be about restriction and regulation. It can actually spark highly profitable, massive-scale innovation. We're witnessing the very beginning of an industrial renaissance, all funded by a global race to bypass that green toll booth and capture market share.
Which brings us to this incredibly powerful, profound final thought directly from our source material. Quote, CBAM could spark the largest green investment wave in industrial history. It's so much more than just a tariff. It's really the starter pistol for the entire future of global industry. Which leaves us with one final question to think about. As this green toll booth reshapes the globe, is your industry ready to adapt, or will it be left paying the price? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. We'll see you next time.